What will happen during the 2020 election? Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and this video is actually a request from a subscriber who donated a very nice amount of money to me with a question attached for me to make a video out of. So I figure I should remind everybody that they can do the same, and if it's over $25, I'll answer questions that are legitimately related to the topics that I talk about. PayPal is best, and yes, I'm still very low on money. By the way, also, Gaytriarchy will be tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Our guest will be a full-blown MGTOW, which I don't think I've ever done on Gaytriarchy. That said, one of the things I'm fairly well known for on YouTube is making predictions, and more than often, ones that end up coming true. So far, the only major thing I can think of that I seemingly got wrong was that I predicted that Hillary Clinton would run again in 2020, and it doesn't look like she's going to, though honestly, Joe Biden is probably the exact same thing with a different label. I don't know, maybe she killed him, scraped out his body, and is wearing him as a suit. Anyhow, I want to first get it out of the way that I think it would take an ending as miraculously elaborate, non-believable, and unsatisfying to the real fans of Avengers movies as Endgame was, in order for the Democrats to actually beat Trump. Between the Russiagate hoax, their continual blind eye turning to the non-stop political violence coming from the left, the victim blaming of non-Democrats that are attacked and smeared, the Me Too insanity, especially in regards to Kavanaugh's victimization at the hands of the least believable liar to ever be taken seriously on a large scale, the calls for open borders, the congressional brat pack, the endemic of digital censorship from Silicon Valley, and the fleet of leftist social media trolls that cheer all of this on everywhere you go on the internet. Well, the idea that this will actually magically work and somehow people will decide to turn around and vote for the party that attempted this coup while telling sane citizens, "You better support our tyrannical attempt to hijack a branch of government we cheated to maintain control of, yet still lost, or else." Do I need to actually finish how ridiculous the idea is that individuals might actually vote for these people in 2020? Honestly, it almost looks as if the strategy was never to actually succeed in ousting Trump and stealing the White House for Queen Hillary to rule like Cersei Lannister, but basically to annoy people so hard for maybe 8 years that they entirely forget that this clown world hellish alternate reality came from the Democrats. But to be completely truthful, I think Clinton really was delusional enough to believe that creating a hoax to distract from her own crimes might actually work. So what do we have left in terms of the Democratic Party? Well, it's basically the party members who managed to survive the horrifically terrible Obama years, thus becoming almost unanimously racist, sexist, America-hating, ideological mad people who think that because the first black president was able to get away with his "you can't criticize me without being called racist" strategy while doing everything he could to ruin our economy and cultural civility, well, they might be able to do this as well, even if they're Joe Biden.
He said there were, quote, "some very fine people on both sides." Very fine people on both sides? With those words, the President of the United States assigned a moral equivalence between those spreading hate and those with the courage to stand against it.
The first thing I want to get into regarding the left as a whole is the way they think. While the rules definitely change for politicians and wealthy people, the motive of every true believer leftist, and by that I mean the intersectional feminist type, which is the religion of the left, is the following. If you're a white person who supports the Democratic Party, your main objective in life is to try to avoid being called racist, privileged, and other things related to that. You do not act in life. You react. You sit down, shut up, and listen for instructions from your superiors. Now, if you're a white male, your primary objective is to not piss off white women. Of course, you can't piss off black people, trans people, or Islamic people, maybe a few other people, but the thing is, the dramatic majority of white male leftists date primarily white leftist females, and white females technically control the left in terms of the social landscape to a veritably tyrannical extent. Thus, we can assume that overall, Hillary Clinton still wears the pantsuit regarding the Joe Biden candidacy, but simply knows she'd lose if she tried to run. Next, if you're a white woman, the game you have to play is to pretend you're a benevolent ruler of your surroundings, because, well, you kinda are the ruler of it, but you have to pretend you're benevolent by constantly trying to out-woke everybody you can. This is achieved mainly by shaming as many people for as many bizarre reasons that you can possibly think of, so that you give the two-dimensional appearance of caring about the oppressed by attacking people all the time who you claim oppress them, usually with words on the internet. And then you simultaneously apologize a bunch for your own privilege as a white person, and also play up your fictitious oppression as a woman. This is also why Hillary Clinton pulled out hot sauce from her purse, of course, and why Lindy West got her completely insane, half-black sister-in-law as many writing gigs as she possibly could, even though she is even more of a hateful lunatic than Lindy is. The idea for white women is to get it to look like you care about those with more intersections than white women, so that you can lead everybody around like Lady Eboshi. Finally, if you're somebody else that the white women have deemed oppressed, like officially oppressed, everything you say is lauded as completely essential information. But they'll never actually really put you in charge, and all of it only goes so far as to further the white women's agenda, because even if you're a black lesbian in a wheelchair, if you talk about how black people and women need to buckle down and work hard to improve their own lives, instead of asking for handouts all day, you'll be cast aside as some sort of fascist sympathizer or something. These are the rules that the left has instilled upon culture and thus the Democratic Party, because they rely on people who think this way to get votes. And due to the fact that these rules govern the populace with the fear of wrath from other leftists, it isn't going to change anytime soon. Thus, in order to speak about the future of the party from now until November of 2020, you'll need to remember first that anybody who deviates from these rules will be punished to the point of being disqualified. Unless they already were disqualified. Like Beto O'Rourke. I mean, seriously, was he ever truly in the race? Personally, my best guess would be that somebody sponsored his campaign after he couldn't even beat the oh-so-likable Ted Cruz, simply to see how well a handsome, young white male would be received by Democratic voters.
If it's not me, then we get behind whoever she or he might be, not only to defeat Donald Trump, but to bring this very divided country together around our common challenges. So
clearly, it doesn't really look like he's likely gonna get the nomination, and actually thinks it'll be a female. So which one? And will it be a female wearing a Joe Biden suit? I mean, seriously, is Mayor Pete female? Truthfully, while many people on the right will be somewhat surprised by me saying this, I can assure you, Pete Buttigieg doesn't have a chance in hell, and if I'm wrong about this and he becomes the nominee, I will reassess literally every view of the Democrats and their opinion of the gay male community that I hold. You see, while he says the right things for the Democratic nomination,
I'm curious about reparations, because you're so thoughtful. But I didn't think your answer during the town hall was very thoughtful. Are you supportive of cash reparations for the African-American community?
I'm supportive of the concept of acting proactively to right these wrongs. I don't know that if it...
Or at least he says the right enough things to please the presumed voting base of the Democratic Party. Poor black people, I guess, are a very pivotal concern this time around. Well, the problem with Mayor Pete that I feel will existentially mark the irrelevance of his candidacy is actually what so many people are attempting to glorify as his main marketing strategy: his homosexuality. I assure you, the contemporary left as a whole will not have too many people within it that let that slide, and it will lead to his undoing no matter what he says or does. You see, while Pete is openly homosexual, which is supposed to be a good thing to the Democrats, at least enough for them to try to ruin the lives of celebrities who make fun of things around that, he's still male, he's still white, and he's even a Christian who didn't come out of the closet as gay until relatively recently. Thus, there will be no chance on earth that the intersectionals will allow this man to get very far, and truthfully, I wouldn't be at all surprised if some big scandalous protest or call-out happens, marking the veritable end of his candidacy, after he doesn't do well enough when a Islamic lesbian asks him about his Christian faith at a town hall or something, and no more white Christian male upstart. You see, here's the thing. White gay men have officially been a very publicly and diligently targeted social demographic by the intersectionals since no later than 2014, as we are considered persona non grata of literally every person who ever talks about their own quote-unquote oppression. In the current year, there is essentially no bigger sin to the left as a whole than claiming to be oppressed when they don't agree that you are. With Pete, they can all look at the list of identities that matter to them, black, trans, female, and Muslim, in order to see that he's not on there, thus being a privileged person that doesn't know his place. Honestly, even if Mayor Pete never makes a big deal out of the fact that he's gay, which honestly I haven't seen him do personally in the very tiny doses I've seen of him speaking, even still, the press will relentlessly blather on about his homosexuality, inevitably prompting literally every properly trained intersectional witnessing to think to themselves, how dare this privileged guy pretend to be oppressed? Gay guys aren't oppressed, and the fact that he's still trying to say he is makes him worse than a straight guy. Truthfully, I think that feeling that they have right there, the one that I kind of just described, might just be the single biggest motivation that intersectionals have, leading them to their relentless hatred of gay white men as a demographic. This idea that so many of us have the audacity to continue to admit to our discrimination after the instructions were sent in 2014 that this was against the rules of feminism? Well, Mayor Pete has been lauded as oppressed in the media, and that's all the intersectionals will need to know to target him. I mean, as far as I know, he's not a veritable communist yet, and FYI, I really don't think they'll let Bernie get far. I just want to throw that in there, now that I'm speaking about communists, because, well, Clinton blamed her loss on him in her book, so yeah, they're not going to let that slide. Because of these things about Pete and the notion that he's not already in the pocket of the billionaire class, Buttigieg is out, and unfortunately, I don't think the black trans woman who's running will make it far, even though I kinda wish she would, because that would be really funny. Perhaps because Hillary Clinton is really angry that she didn't get to be the first female president, I don't anticipate that any of the white women running will actually make it all that far, for their own separate reasons. Amy Klobuchar has the literal worst name since Michael Dukakis, besides Mayor Pete's monstrosity of a name that I hate saying, but more importantly, her personality is the exact reverse of electable. Elizabeth Warren, similarly, had already started to overstay her welcome in the media spotlight by 2016, but now has been ravaged by firewater. She just seems so annoying every time I hear her speak. And for whatever reason, almost nobody ever mentions Kirsten Gillibrand's name at all, likely because the woman they actually want you to keep an eye on, who's every bit as much of an upper middle class airhead corporate politician as anybody, is, of course, Kamala Hairspray, who has intersections, is a massive corporate sellout, like I said, and has no problem coming up with completely insane, communist-rooted ideas to sell that I legitimately doubt she actually intended on making happen at the time. But they are completely scary, so it's worth noting because maybe she would try to push for that if she became president.
Which is why my first bill as your United States Senator is named the Access to Counsel Act, which says that anyone detained at our border, whether they arrive by land, sea, or air, has a right to an attorney.
I don't know, maybe I'm underestimating Gillibrand, and actually, Andrew Yang might very well have some big money connections that'll get him a lot further than people are suspecting, so continue to keep your eyes on him. Still, I'm having too much trouble finding all that much motivation to drum up much of a in-depth prediction for the 2020 elections, and I already basically said why. Trump will win. Duh. But regarding the Democratic Party, the way I see it, the only things you'll really need to know in order to figure out what they'll do next is to first, follow the money, and second, think about intersections. Thus, unless Michelle Obama ends up announcing her candidacy, which probably won't happen until 2024, when they figure she'll be sure to win, it'll be Joe Biden for president 2020, as he's the last of the big money titans from past administrations who will be willing to run against Trump, as he's always wanted to be president and only has one more election in him anyway, so he'll be fine with the colossal embarrassment that attempting this election will be. Yes, big money always comes first, even if it's a white male, I guess. And then, of course, Kamala Hairspray for vice president of intersections, and also maybe a little bit because she's based out of the San Francisco Bay Area and is thus undoubtedly very acquainted with the Chinese businessmen that are buying up all the property in California, because if a soulless corporatist with a law degree looks like this, she can get very far in the current year. Those are my predictions. They could all be wrong. It's very early. Now give me money and ask me some questions and I'll make more videos out of the questions. Thanks a bunch.